I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to make a quarter square triangle. Since I got so excited and made all these without taping them, sorry about that. So, it says on the instructions to draw a diagonal line on your fabric, but I hate drawing on fabric because, you know, the fabric often wants to kind of bunch up and it just takes a long time. It's frustrating. So I just fold my square in half, being very careful to match the corners and the tip, and then I press it. And it leaves a beautiful line. So, the reason you need that line is because you're going to come along here, and I put my blade of my presser foot right on the line. Okay, so I take and put the blade of my presser foot right on the line, and that way I know when I sew down, leaving that 1/4 inch blade foot right on the line, then it'll be 1/4 of an inch away from that line. Then I turn the block around, putting the blade of that 1/4 inch foot right on the line again, and come on down this way. Alright, now, then what I do, usually I'll make a bunch of these at a time. I had to make 16 of these and 48 of these. So what I do is sew them all together and then go and usually sit and put my feet up and trim. Now, did you notice how I just did that? You have to trim because otherwise when you go to fold it back, you'd have that little piece of what they call dog ear or bunny ear. So what I do is I trim down the middle, right on that line I pressed, and I go over to this edge, then I go over to this edge, about 1/8 of an inch inside the stitching, and this way, when you open them up, you have no bunny ears or dog ears. Okay? So I sew up a bunch of these, and then go take a break, watch a little TV, and trim them. Alright, so now you end up with 2 half square triangles. Okay? Now to make a 1/4 square triangle, I've got the green down here on this one. I put the green side now up this way. So if you pull this back, see what you're going to end up with? So, do that. And then I do the same thing, which is make a crease on the diagonal. Then I've got my line. And if it's not just right, I correct it, you know. So now I come in here and put that blade right on that diagonal point and start sewing down here. Now since this block is so small, I shorten my stitch length. Anytime I do something small, I shorten the length. Now I'll turn it around and I will stitch again. And usually when if you want to make a 2.5 inch quarter square triangle, you add about 7/8 of an inch. And that way, you know, whoops, I forgot to do my trimming in at an angle, up, and go off that edge at an angle. And then when I come back and trim this, then I can open my 1/4 square triangle. There's this one and this one. So there you go. It's that easy to make 1/4 square triangles. Aren't these cute? They are 1.5 inch 1/4 square triangles. They are too cute. I think I'm gonna hold on to those. Alright, if I get really brave one day, I'll make a miniature quilt. So anyway, I did that, and I did that to make 48 of these blocks. And then I took and put the rectangles on the end. If you've pressed it the right way, they'll snug right up. Whoops, pardon me. Okay, let me show you this. I take this piece, fold it over on top of this piece. Then I pick them up and make sure to match the seams. And if you've pressed them correctly, they will just nest right in there together. You can feel they have butted up. So I put a pin there to hold that. And then on the other side, I butt those up and put a pin in here to hold this. And then I sew. Okay, let's see what we've got. Take my pins out. And since there are so many seams in here, so much fabric, I'm going to let my seam allowance go up towards the single piece here. See, if I tried to fold it down, I'm just really fighting all those layers of fabric. Right here, yes, you do have to fight. Now, if you wanted to make it less knobby and tough, all you have to do is take off some of the seam allowances behind that and then fold it up, and it feels much better. It's less bulky. So there we are. Then I press this and it can join this pile of them. As you can see, I've been a busy girl. So I know that I have 16 strawberries, so I'll end up with 16 of these. So I'm going to continue to sew right now. I'll probably speed it up and put it on silent so it doesn't drive you nuts. Remember earlier, I happened to mention that I got these rectangles out, but they were going to be a little narrower, but I had run out of fabric. So what I do is when I pin this on here, I split the difference, because if I move the fabric all the way down and even on one side, then it's a little too close on the seam allowance. But this, if you're careful with these, nobody will ever know that that's all the fabric you had left and you were doing the best you could. What I do is I chain piece, and that's how I'm able to get a lot of sewing done in a little bit of time. I'm now getting ready to sew the top row of the strawberry. And this is, I know this doesn't look like strawberry fabric, but the pattern showed some light colored ones And I thought, well, I've got to try to make at least one light colored one. I like to do all of the same sewing at the same time. So I've got about 10 different kinds of fabrics that I'm going to use for the strawberries, and I'll do the same top row of each strawberry at the same time. Assembly line sewing like Eleanor Burns taught us, best way yet. Speaking of Eleanor Burns, I saw her sister Patty Nagel last week at a local, the Davie County Quilt Guild. And she is delightful, just delightful. And I took some pictures, and so at some point I'm going to put a video out to show you a little clip. If you live in an area where Pat Nagel doesn't get your way, then you'll enjoy watching that video. Alright, I need to find fabric that matches it. There they are. And I don't know if you can see the glitter. I don't think you can. But it is just beautiful. Oh, I wish. Oh, there you go. You can see it. See that little. Ah, I love it. Love it. Love it. Alright. So even though these pieces are going to have a rectangle on either side, I'm doing all of their first sides at the same time. Then I'll turn them around and sew the second side on each of them. But if I were to stop and do one at a time, it would just take too long. And I'm too excited to see this come together. I'm very impatient, let me tell you. I'm patient with people, impatient with time. Look at this glitter. Isn't that awesome? I'm putting all of the 2.5-inch squares to the side because they are for this border around. So I don't need those right now, so I'm putting them to the side. There we go. 16 strawberry tops. In one of the other videos, I told you that I made this. I bought this little plastic thing, but I saw that the base wasn't big enough for it to be stable. So Mark cut a piece of wood. I painted it for fun, put my name on it. But I love this thing. Make sure though, when you're not using it, please put that top back on, because ask me how much that hurts to bring your hand down on top of that. All right. So you know the story, Eleanor Burns. I love Eleanor Burns stories, because you talk about a pioneer. She was a true pioneer. And she was left with 2 boys to raise by herself and very little money out in California years ago. And so they used to go dumpster dive at a clothing manufacturer, because she would send the boys into the dumpster. In fact, the company would call and say, hey, we're going to put some good fabrics out there you might want to check out. And then her boys would jump in the dumpster and pull out any usable fabrics, and then she would make quilts out of them to sell. And she was the one that found out about chain piecing, because she noticed her boys were bringing these long strands of waistbands with pockets attached. And she thought, aha! So they just sew one thing after another, after, doing the same thing time after time. And it's a big time saver. Big time saver. So now I am going to go press these, and I'll be right back. Just so you know, I press these seams into the large rectangle. I wouldn't want to press them back. Look at all of those layers. You would have to try to press them over. So you press them away. Alright, now we have 16 strawberry tops. Now these aren't quite finished. We've got a little thing left to do, and I'll show you what that is. So now you know which fabrics I am going to replicate. And with these, I wanted the fabrics running the same direction. I love symmetry. Alright, so we've got that. The last thing I need to do is to put little triangles on these corners to give a rounded effect to the tops of these strawberries. Okay, so I need to go iron these in half to set my diagonal line. I can hear that Mark's back from his motorcycle ride. Okay, do you remember when I was cutting these, I told you I'm short on this fabric? So what I did is I found some fabric that was similar in lightness, not exactly the same, but similar, and thought I'll cut some of the pieces I need from this. It is a Sunday, my quilt shop's not open, so necessity's the mother of invention, and I'm necessitating. Well, I didn't have to get by with any little scraps or look-alike fabric, because when I went to put my large 4-inch squares on the bottom of the strawberry block, I ended up with plenty of leftovers to cover this. So boy, did I get lucky. Okay, so you're sewing these 2-inch squares on the corners to give the strawberry top a rounded look. Now, since I'm using scraps, this one doesn't quite reach up, but not to worry, because by the time you sew this on, in fact I'll do it right now and show you, that top will fall in the seam allowance and you won't even see that I was short. My scissors, there they are. Cut off the excess here.
Hello, I'm back.
You're back. That's Mark in the background. Okay, see what I mean? This is the one that was a little short, but it got caught up in the seam allowance. You'll see here, it doesn't have a full 1/4 inch seam allowance, but once that's sewn and quilted, you'll never know. So there's my first strawberry top. This green star, which I just love, I think it's so pretty, that is supposed to be the strawberry, the little leaves on the top of the strawberry. I think they're so cute. And I changed the fabric. I didn't use the green version of this. I went ahead and got this mottled green, which I really like, because I've noticed in some of the other fabric, I'll show you, there's a nice lime green in the fabric. See there's several greens. So I thought that would look good. I really like it. Okay. And my birthday's in early May. I've always had strawberry shortcake for my birthday cake. Alright, set these here so they're ready. Now let's sew corners on the tops of our strawberries.